Hello, this is Eric Wadara. I'm going to show you a quick tutorial on making a text, like a dialogue system in Unity. Just so you know, this was borrowed from Brackeys, a Brackeys tutorial that I watched, so you can go find that tutorial as well. But for this one, I'm going to show you how to use that dialogue system in practice. And it's going to be as quick as I can. It's going to be kind of no frills. I don't have any animations flying on the screen, like, subscribe, whatever. And I'm going to go at relatively normal pace. So since this is a video, you can stop, slow, whatever you need to do. But I want this to be relatively quick. So first thing I'm going to do is I opened up a 2D project. I just called it Dialogue in Action. Obviously, it doesn't matter what it's called. And I'm going to import a couple of assets just so it looks okay. Again, this is still supposed to be no frills, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I have a bunch of Kenny game assets. I'm going to bring in a background. Then I'm also just going to search for 2 players. This guy will do just fine. And let's get this dude right here. Great. So we have 2 players and a background. Not totally necessary, but it's okay. We can do that. And I'll also bring in a platform. Just one, and I'm going to stretch it. It's going to look shitty. That's fine. Whatever. Okay. I'm going to create a canvas for my background. Screen space overlay is fine for this. Usually you want to scale with screen size. Doesn't really matter in this instance. I'm just going to make an image, and I'm going to scale my image or anchor it so that it stretches across the entire screen. Zero out all of its elements, and I'll drop my background in there. And hey, we have a little background. If I preserve the aspect, it's small, but I'll just stretch it again. Who cares? This is supposed to be about dialogue managers. So we have a background. Perfect. Now let's make a tile for my platform. Let's make sure that my platform is higher in layer. I'm stretching it out a lot. It doesn't really matter. I'm placing it here. I need to make sure that for some reason, switch to screen space camera. No big deal either way. We have this tile. Let's go ahead and give it a box collider 2D so that we can land on it. Then let's bring our player into the world. Here he is. Hey, it's a player. Let's give him a rigid body 2D, and let's give him a box collider 2D. That should be fine. If I play, come on, guy. My guy drops. I'm gonna give him a. Let's make the other player here. Scale him up a little bit so that we can see him. And this is gonna be like the NPC that talks. Okay, this thing is gonna talk. I'm gonna give it a box collider 2D. I'm gonna make it a trigger, and I'm going to edit it so that it is a little bit larger than his size. So if you see, it's a little tough to distinguish between the green and the green, but I just made the box collider a little bit larger, and that's because we are going to trigger dialogue from within this box collider. So again, it is a trigger, so my player will be able to walk into it. And then I'm going to tag this player, or I'm going to tag this guy NPC. And the idea here is my player is going to have a simple script on him. There's going to be a dialogue manager. When my player is in contact with an NPC, then they will be able to press a button to talk with the NPC. Talk is kind of a bigger name than what's actually going to happen. Anyways, I'm saving, and now let's get into some code stuff. So first thing we're going to do is create an empty object. I'm going to call it Dialogue Manager. And this is the stuff from the Brackeys tutorial. I'm going to create a dialogue manager, script, add it to that empty game object. I'm going to open it up, and we're going to have a few things in this dialogue manager. Okay, waiting on it to open up. Give me a second, there's an alarm going off. And we're open. Okay, so first thing we are going to do is make a singleton of this dialogue manager. So we need public static dialogue manager DM. And I'm going to call it DM. I'm going to go down, I'm going to make an awake function. And in awake, I'm going to say DM equals this. There's a little bit longer here. What we could do is foolproof it so that there's only one dialogue manager per project and destroy the other ones. But for this, we're just going to say DM equals this. We're also going to have a queue of strings, and we're going to call it sentences. Okay, we are going to have a couple of text fields, and for that I need to import unityengine.ui. So public text, name text, and dialogue text. And these are going to be parts of my canvas where it displays the name and it displays the dialogue. Okay, I'll zoom in a little bit so that we can see it a little bit more easily. Eventually, we are going to have an animator that brings this text box in and out. I'm just going to call it, I might as well call it box anim. And then just as an extra, we'll have a float for a talk delay, or character delay actually, is what it is. And that'll make it so that you can custom set the speed at which the dialogue pops in. And that's that. In the start function, we are going to declare our sentences queue, and we say sentences equals new queue string. Voila. Queue is a really nice type. It's a really nice type because it's like a list where you can add things to it and remove from it, and it auto sizes accordingly. So that's nice. We don't need update, which is good. We don't need to be updating 60 frames a second, but we are going to create a few different methods. Before we do that, let's create our dialogue helper script. So I'm just going to create a C# script. I'm going to call it dialogue. I'm going to open it up. And this is a helper script. It's not going to need to inherit from mono behavior. It doesn't even need start and update. This is where all of your dialogue is going to be. So it's going to be public string name. It's the name of your character, your NPC, and then public string sentences. And this is an array of sentences. And I'm going to change the name sentences so we don't get it confused with dialogue manager. I'm going to say NPC lines, NPC lines. In order to make it a little bit easier to edit in the inspector, I'm going to do this text area 310, and this makes it so that we'll have large text areas to input our text. Okay, cool beans. Now we have this dialogue manager. We're back over here. dialog manager, the thing that the mechanism that's going to actually do all the work. And so what it's going to do is public void start dialog, and it will take a dialog from the NPC. So the NPC script, which we haven't written yet, it's going to be a very small script, very simple. But the NPC script is going to trigger start dialog, and it's going to send in whatever dialog it has. And remember, dialog has a name and it has a bunch of lines determined by us. Okay, so this sends in that. We're going to say nameText.text equals die.name. Again, this is the dialog. It has a name. We're setting that. Okay? Then we are going to clear our queue, and we're going to loop through it all and say for each string sentence in dialog.sentences. Oh, it's not sentences, NPC lines. So for each, let's go each line in NPC lines. Sentences.enqueue, which means add it to the queue, line. So we're going to add each one of the lines to a queue, and then we are going to display the next sentence. And of course, we don't have that yet, so we're going to create it. Public void display next sentence. Okay, display next sentence. First thing it's going to do is check if we're done. If sentences or sentences.count equals 0, then we are going to end dialog. Another function we don't yet have, but that's sometimes how coding works. And we're going to return out of this function, so we'll get out of here if there's no more sentences left. And if there are sentences, so if it's not 0, we're going to create a local variable called sen whatever equals sentences.dequeue. Great. So that is fine. And then we're going to say dialogtext.text equals sen. Okay, so we're going to dequeue it, which will reorganize the rest of the queue. And then we're also going to hard set it into this text box. Eventually, like I said, we have this character delay. We're going to create a coroutine where instead of straight putting it into a text box, we'll do it character by character. But for right now, let's get this working and test it out. So let's make our end dialog function. And right now, all it's going to do is print to the console dialog ended. Okay. Voila. Zoom out a little bit so we can see the whole thing. This is, from 4 on is basically what we modified. Great. And now let's make our last script, which will be the NPC script, which will trigger the dialog. Okay, so I'm going to right-click, create C# script, and I'm going to call it dialog. Actually, we have 2 that are already called dialog. I'm going to call it NPC dialog. Okay, I'm going to open up NPC dialog, and pretty much the only thing NPC dialog is going to do is it's going to take a public dialog, my sentences, or my words. Okay, it's going to take in this dialog that we give it, We don't need to update, we don't need start, but we do need to be able to trigger dialogue. Okay, and what trigger dialogue is going to do is dialog manager.dm.start dialog, and it's going to send in my words. Okay, this is void, it's not returning anything. Great. Now, it's going to be a little tricky, but not totally. Basically, what we're going to have to do is get this NPC dialogue script off of the NPC and call trigger dialogue whenever we want. And when we want to, as I mentioned before, is when this player is within the NPC's box, its box collider, and you press a button. Okay? I'm going to bump up his order and layer so that you can walk through the NPC. Not important, but anyways. So I'm going to make a super simple player script, call it player control, and all this is going to do is move left and right and be able to talk, or be able to trigger the talk from any NPC. So we'll have public float speed. We're not even going to be able to jump. We don't care about that right now. Rigid body 2D RB. We're going to move by the rigid body. We'll get that component. Sorry, RB equals get component rigid body 2D. And we are going to have, we'll say, float horizontal equals input dot get axis horizontal, and RB dot move position by horizontal times speed. We need a new vector too. So new vector, I'm going to make it a vector 3 so it doesn't yell at me for moving a vector 3 by a vector 2. RB.move position, new vector 3, and our x is going to be speed times horizontal times time dot, we'll multiply the whole thing by time dot delta time. Speed, horizontal, y is going to be 0, and that's that. Actually, we will multiply it by time dot delta time. Okay, so we should be able to move. Let's test that. Make sure we set our speed to something greater than 0. I'm going to set my no, I don't need to set the gravity scale, whatever. Alright, my player control speed is going to be 25. Great. That's funny. So instead what we need to do is rb.move position transform dot position plus new vector 3. So we want to get whatever its position is and then add our modifier to it, basically. So we can move left and right, perfect. Again, we're not jumping. The gravity looked terrible, but that's not what we're here for. You can do player move it however you want. We're here for dialogue. So when our player gets into the NPC zone, let's say you can press the space bar in order to talk to it. Okay? So we need a bool, public bool can talk. And so void on trigger enter 2D. I don't like how it calls it collision because it's a collider, but whatever. Say if collision.compare tag NPC, then can talk equals true. Sorry, see? This is why I don't like it. Collision. we will copy paste this and make an on-trigger exit 2D and make it false. So when you leave it, you can't talk. This may not be foolproof. Sometimes Unity's collision detection is not the only thing you want to rely on, but it should be fine for now. So let's test that that works. And then we actually have to create the dialogue stuff, like the text boxes. So if I click play, moving left and right, can talk is true. Aha, yeah, it works, great. Now we need a couple of text objects, basically. I'm going to change this word to background. In my canvas, I'm going to make another image, and this image is going to be straight white. You can do whatever you want with it. I'm going to make it stretch off the bottom of the screen. Yeah, we're going to do bottom stretch, and we're going to say left is 0, right is 0. Height will be 200. Nope, that's way too big. 150, and position's going to go down. Okay, this is not drawing above the other stuff, which is a pain, but I'm not dealing with that right now. So let's make the dialogue coming from the top of the screen. Okay, layering is a whole other, video tutorial, whatever you want to learn. But for now, I just want this to come in. We want there to be dialogue, and then it goes out. Okay, so we have this image. We'll call it talk box. Then we also need text elements for our name and for our talking. So I'm going to create text. I made it a child of the image. You don't have to do that. I don't think it really matters, especially in this specific instance. I'm going to anchor my name text in the top left, and I'm going to center it. I like doing things like that. Make it a little bit bigger so that it's readable. Give myself some space on the left and the right. And for now, we'll do best fit. But that may not always be what you want to do. Okay, best fit is nice because if you have a really long name, it still fits within that area. But it can cause problems later on. So I'll give this a little, let's do this. Okay, yeah, let's left align it, but then make it a little bit longer for longer names. My name is very long. Okay, cool. Besides for name, we need another text component for the dialogue. And I'm going to stretch this out a good deal. And we'll just say dialogue, good, talking, great. This doesn't look incredible, but it should work for what we're doing. And just because I feel like it, I'm going to go ahead and make another image, and I'll make it straight, or like charcoal. I think a good charcoal is 323232. I'm going to bring it up to the bottom of my text, and I'm going to resize it so that it will what's the word? Cut this in two, dissect it so that it looks decent. And let me go ahead and shrink this just a little bit. Cool. So now we have different areas basically that our people are going to talk in. So their name is up here and they talk down there. Great, perfect. If you have images that are nice for this dialog box, I'm sure you do, you can use them. I'm just going to use this. Okay, remember our dialog manager needs those texts. Okay, one way we can do this is find it in script. An easier, lazier way is to just drop them in. Our name text is there, and our dialog text is right there. So dialogue is there, and we need an animator as well. So our talk box is going to get an animator. You know what? The easiest way in Unity right now to make an animation and an animator is to click the talk box, click animation, and then click create. Okay, the new clip we are going to create is called text in. And so what I'm going to do to trick it, we basically want to tell it where to be when it's quote unquote in. So I'm going to click the record button. I'm going to set its Y position to anything ever. And then I'm going to set it back to what it was, which was -77. And I think that's a good position for it to be. All right. And so this clip has one keyframe, and it's just be here. Now I'm going to click on the text in name, and I'm going to create a new clip, and I'm going to call it text out. Text out, we're going to do something similar. We're just going to move this text box up until it's off of the screen. And what's funny is that this element, this little image, is not a part of the talk box, so I gotta rechild that, but that's not a big deal. Okay, so I'll stop recording. I will child. Oh, nope, I don't want to child it there. I want to child it now. Okay, great. Now text out needs to go up. Shit, wrong one. Talk box, text out, whole thing. Get out of here. Great. So text in is down, text out is out. Okay, let's go ahead and set some ways for this to actually work. So I'm going to go into my animator tab, not my animation tab. Animator. I use the scroll wheel click to move around this because otherwise it's a pain. And we see that text in is the default. I don't think any of us wants that. So we're going to make text out the default layer. Then we're going to make a transition to text in and a transition back to text out. And we need to give these conditions. When is it going to go from text out to text in? And for that, I'm going to create a parameter. So parameters, this little plus button, give me a bool, and say is in, is the name of the bool, whatever. And so to go from text out to text in, is in needs to be true. And if you missed that, what I did was I clicked on the transition itself. In the conditions area, I clicked plus, is in, is true. I'm going to turn off has exit time, and then I'm going to do the same thing for text from text in to text out, except is in equals false. So when is in equals false, in goes to out. Okay, let's set that in the script. So our dialog manager, when we start dialog, we have the box anim. We need to say box anim dot set bool is in. Remember to correctly type this and say true. Okay, so when we start the dialog, set the animation of the box to be true. Set the bool is in to be true. And when we end the dialog, go ahead and set it to be false. All right, I think we're just about ready to start. I mean, obviously you should test this a lot more and in smaller chunks, but I've done this a couple times, so I think we're going to be all right. So our player blue stand, let's give him the NPC script, NPC Dialogue. This has a public dialogue on it, my words. For some reason that's not showing up. Let's go ahead and put the box animator in there. That's fine. maybe we do need start in here. For it to show up in the inspector. If not, I guess we could serialize it. Okay, let's let it compile, cross our fingers. I love right after I say I've done this before, it just stops working, which is awesome. And very telling. Okay, player. Talk box is fine. Dialogue manager. Player stand. Oh, come on. Going back into my code. Public dialogue, or public whatever, my words. It has a start. What if we add back in update? Is that going to give us something? I doubt it. No, it's not. All right. Let's try to serialize this field. Come on, dialogue. Drat. Could be something in dialogue then. I don't think so though. That's fine. Oh, yes, it is. I see. We need to serialize it here. Sorry about that. System.serializable. Great. So that we need to be able to see this dialogue in the inspector. All right, I'm going to go back to here and get rid of all this nonsense. Sorry about that. If you miss one thing, you miss it all. Once this compiles, then it will be viewable in the inspector. My words, name, blue velvet, NPC lines. We'll give him 3 lines. And he'll say Heineken, no way, which is a nicer way of saying what Dennis Hopper says in the movie. And he'll say Pabst, blue ribbon. And great. We can't really test this yet because there's no way for our player to actually trigger, to call that dialogue trigger from the NPC script, NPC dialogue script. So we need to call this from there. Okay, so in player control, what we're going to do is in update, we're going to say if can talk. Actually, we'll put this in if input dot get button down. We'll do jump for now, but just so you know, you can do whatever you want. You can make a button in the input manager called talk and then set it to specific keys on your keyboard. We're going to use jump because it's the quickest, easiest way to get to spacebar. All right, if input dot get button down jump, if can talk, then we want to get the NPC dialogue script from the NPC. Oh man, programming is the best. So we actually need to get that script, and we can't get it from here. So what we're going to get it from is we're just going to have a reference to it at all times. NPC dialogue, current NPC. So not only when you come in contact with an NPC, not only should we set can talk to be true, but we'll also set current NPC equal to collision.getComponent NPC Dialogue. And let's go ahead and set this to be null so that we can't trigger it when we leave. Okay, so now we have reference to the script of the current NPC, current NPC dot trigger dialogue. We also need a way to keep going to display next sentence. And so start dialogue is right here. Let's test it real quick. Oh no, let's not. We need a way to do display next sentence. So for this we can create a button, or we can make the space bar do it with some if statements here. I'm going to create a button because it's easier and it's kind of common, but we could have done it with some more scripting magic. So up in my canvas, I'm going to create a button in the talk box, and it's going to say button. I'm going to put it in the bottom right. I'm going to change the text to say next. I'm going to resize the button itself just a little bit. Actually, no, let's just make it long, it doesn't matter. And in the onClick function for the button, I'm going to add to this list, I'm going to drag in the dialog manager, and it's going to display next sentence. Okay, so dialog manager, the dialog manager script, display next sentence. All right, finally, I think we are ready to test. So we walk on over. I'm going to look at my player in the inspector. It can talk. I'm going to click in the game view. I'm going to press space. It says Blue Velvet, Heineken. I'm going to click next. No way. Pabst Blue Ribbon. Click next. Dialogue has ended. Cool. And of course this isn't perfect because we can we trigger it from afar? No, we can't. We are still hitting this next button, which isn't great, but anyway, that should be fine. And at this point, we can make different NPCs because we have them all. So we can duplicate this NPC and we can move it. Where's my move tool? To over here, and then give it new lines. So this one's name is Blue2, and Blue2 says, hey yo, I'm small. And we'll make him a little bit smaller. So now if we go over to Blue2, it says something different. If we go over to Blue Velvet, it says something different. Great. Now there's a lot we can do from this point on, right? Like from this point we could make it so that we can start, and when we leave the trigger, we could make this end. Okay, we could call dialogue end. So if we wanted to, I'm going to end the tutorial in a second, but that seems like a really cool thing. So on trigger exit 2D, I can just call dialog manager .dm .end dialog. And since I haven't thought this 100% through, it may be wrong, but let's see what happens. Press play, go over, start dialogue with him, and then we walk away and it's gone. Start dialogue, walk away, and it's gone. Okay, and that's like a pretty simple dialogue system. At this point, you can create a bunch of other, like a bunch of characters that talk to you. You can make them do stuff. And this is fairly flexible, which is nice. I mean, the fact that you can call Dialogue Manager from anywhere is nice. You can make it. Oh, we didn't do the character delay. All right, I'm going to write that pretty quickly. Character delay is going to have an I enumerator, so a coroutine, and we'll call it sentence. We'll call it car by car, or char by char, whatever. And what this will do is split everything into a char array and display it one by one. Okay? So it'll say, let's have it send in a sentence actually, or send in a string. So send in a string, sentence to type, and what it will do is say dialog text dot text equals blank. Blank it out at first. And then for each char C in sentence to type dot to char array, dialog text dot text plus equals C. And of course we need to yield, return new, wait for seconds, and that will be our delay, our character delay. So now we can call this char by char to clear the dialog text, and then for each char in the sentence dot to char array, so it splits it into an array of chars, yield return, it updates the text box and then waits for however many seconds we tell it to. So instead of hard setting this right here, we comment that out and we say stop all coroutines, start coroutine, char by char, come on caps, and then send in that sentence. Cool. And with a 0 in for the delay, it's not going to, it will be different, but it's not going to be too different. So we check our dialog manager, we have this character delay, press play, again it's 0. If I go over and talk to Blue Velvet, it's pretty quick. It's extremely quick. But if we change this to okay. Start coroutine, char by char, sentence. Is my yield supposed to be in the thing? I don't think so. Yes, it is. My yield is supposed to be within the loop. And then we'll go back, and after it compiles, we'll be done. And we'll have learned a very nice tutorial manager. And if we have a 0.1 second delay, we see that it comes in on a short delay. And we see that there's an issue with the first sentence showing up here. Oh, that's because we are spacebar is clicking this button. That's funny. Okay. So that can be an issue because when I'm clicking next, 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 now if I go over here, the focus is still on this button, so when I click spacebar, it's going to activate it and also click next immediately. We could fix that another way, but we're not going to, so oh well. Alright, that's that. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learned something, and let me know if you need anything else. Alright, stopping now.